Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, joined by Nick Sutherland from Myndfit. I'm just thinking now that people would have heard the jingle. Remember, I forgot that we had a jingle last week that I made. Must have been a while ago. Good job, me. Sort of pat on the back. I hope everyone's enjoying that jingle. It was a bit of a banger, wasn't it, from memory? We should listen to it again. Nico's here. Someone's having a ripping a bong next to him. You can see the smoke. Or is it that? Or you're having some sort of seance there? You're just being wafted on by a gentle, oh, wow. For those that are not on YouTube and just listening, Nick has, what would you call that? Some sort of little potted plant set up with a giant stick of incense coming out of the potting mix. And yeah, is that a certain type of incense?
Surrounded by
Do incense have flavors?
Well, there's different forms of incense. This is the stock standard Nag Champa.
Oh, of course, Nag Champa. But probably in my top four incense flavors, the old Nag Champa, a ripper.
It's just my go-to. It's stock standard, and you know what you're getting from it. So
it's very predictable.
Yeah. It's great to be here. The Maharaji of Mindfulness is in town, and
self-proclaimed.
Yep, I'm running with it.
You've got a run sheet today. I can't believe. I don't know what's on the run sheet, but a run. I thought you were planning when you said I'm just finishing the run sheet. I thought you were planning out your day or something, like what chores need to be done around the house. But you're committed and you're focused to this show, and I love it.
I don't have a run sheet for life, Ryan. I just turn up and I just be there. And
yours would be more of a walking sheet.
Yeah. I was chatting with a client yesterday, and this is something we're going to touch on later. It was about motivation and everything. And I shared with them, I got rid of my to-do list. I found having a to-do list, I became more unproductive because I started getting overwhelmed. I started procrastinating and, it's just so much, blah, blah. So I got rid of my to-do list, and I've become so much more productive because I just turn up. I'll just walk into the shed, or I'll walk into the office, or wherever I'm spending my time and energy that day, and then I'll just start on something, and then it'll just roll and roll and roll, and next thing you know.
And how do you know what to start with? You just, if you walk into the office, that'll just present itself.
Yep.
All right.
You walk into the shed and you just start moving this and moving that, and all of a sudden you get a saw in your hand, and you get a chainsaw, and then you're sharpening a chainsaw blade, then you're outside, you're hooking a trailer up, and you're felling some dead trees, and you got a trailer load of firewood, and then you're burning some greenwood. And end of the day comes around, and you're like, wow, that was and there was no manufacturing, there's no I have to, there's no forcing of it. It's just a very organic and wonderful experience.
It's very valuable for me to hear at the minute, because I'm finding myself a little bit, my to-do. I haven't got many. I have a little. I literally have one next to me right now. But more of my to-dos at the minute are like up in my head, and I'm finding myself lately, getting a little bit frustrated because I'm finding myself focusing a little bit more on the things that I'm not getting done as opposed to the things that I am. And so this is a really gentle little reminder for me. I have all these ideas and things that I want to do. And then we've been a little bit cooking here the last couple of weeks, and we've had different bits and pieces going on. And I actually was speaking to a coach yesterday, and I said, I just feel like I'm doing about 20% of what I'm capable of. And he goes, I reckon you're doing about 120% of what you're capable of. You need to just know what you're capable of at the minute. And so him saying that and you saying that is, I feel myself on a little bit of a different path now. That's great.
Wonderful. It's we offer to clients that we can't do it all, be it all, say it all, know it all, have it all. And the beliefs that we use: must be loved and liked, must be perfect, and must get what I want. And the antithesis of those is we're all ignorant, incompetent, and mediocre to some degree, and that's okay. So it really helps us to get out of this I have to mentality and this sense of deficiency. I'm not doing enough. And we start to sit in this, I am doing enough, and this is okay. And nature never rushes, yet everything is accomplished. I trust. It's more living in trust instead of anxiety. I trust that I'll get done what needs to get done, but I don't need to to complete it all. I don't to finish life. You know, it's
Imagine that. We'd get a bit funny, wouldn't we? We've finished life, and you're like, "Well, I'm only 40 something. What am I going to do?" It's like I heard Jordan Peterson on Rogan once, and he said something. It's like this. I think he was talking about meaning, and purpose, and he was saying it's like everybody's sort of idea is like, one day they're going to be okay and they'll retire, and the images they conjure is like just sipping a margarita on a beach, somewhere in paradise. And he goes, but how long are you going to do that for? Like you could a few hours, like maybe a few days. You could maybe stretch it to a few weeks, but that's not something you're going to do for 30 years. You'll get very bored very quickly. It'll get old, and you probably get liver toxicity. But that's where it doesn't mean we don't enjoy those things, but I think a deeper meaning and mission and purpose, and that's why I think I'll never retire. I don't see myself as someone who has something to retire from, to be honest.
I think we spoke about it before. That's why many women struggle when the kids leave home, because they lose that sense of purpose and meaning. They've heavily identified as I am a mother, and it's been very one-dimensional. And men struggle when they retire.
I am a provider, right?
Yeah. And so, or I am an architect, or I am a therapist. And then when they stop being that, they lose that identity or that sense of purpose or whatever, and they struggle to transition into this next chapter. So,
and then a lot of people's unconscious material then can come up because there's space for it to happen, and that can be quite uncomfortable. I remember I've seen it many times. This one particular client at the center was this lady, and she was at this retirement age, and she'd been retired for 12 months or so, and it was so interesting because she was sort of speaking how she struggled so much with anxiety and other feelings and whatnot since retirement. And she sort of intuitively knew. She's like, I can just feel these. It's always been there, since I was a kid, like since I was a teenager. And I feel like its roots are back then. But, I got to school and then I just worked my whole life and, busted my ass. And by staying busy, I could like keep it at bay, keep the wolf at bay. But now all of a sudden I've stopped and it has space, and there it is. It's right there. And that's why, one of the things, I'm sure we've spoken about this on the show, but people like time heals all wounds, and it's like, not really.
It can actually just fester and make it worse.
100%. He's looking at the run sheet. He's looking at the run sheet. What's first cab off the rank?
Well, I wonder if you're wearing pants today, because you're back to wearing pants. All right, okay.
Can you give a bit of context? People are going to think I'm a nudist or something.
There's been some regression since yesterday, so
I'll come back a bit. Me and Nick were having a funny conversation, which ended up in me saying that I'm just wearing undies from now on and I'll never wear pants. It was about strides. Yeah. What do we like? I guess that's apt, like strides. I'm striding in them.
You said I'll be recording tomorrow at 8:30, and I said, you bet your strides on it. And then you went, I don't want to bet my strides on it. I love these. They're amazing strides. And it started up this where you're very codependent on it. And that's a weak link for our golf tournament, because, if the opposition finds out that you've got this weak link, they're going to pick at that and use it against us as a team. And I'm here to support you. And then you came around to, all right, I've just burnt all my pants. I've done it. I feel free. I'm walking down the street naked. This is a new way of living. This is amazing. And then you turn up today in a pair of strides.
Well, I realized that I'm not going to be able to get into these golf clubs without any pants on.
Oh, that's true. So you've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other, and now you found that middle ground, that balanced. So
my pendulum is come to the middle. It's come at rest in the middle. I've gone from one extreme to the other, and now I'm sitting just nicely in the middle.
So I don't know if there's many better feelings apart from flushing a 6-iron and seeing it just draw into a touch pin behind a bunker and rolling up to 3 feet.
To all you non-golfers listening, try it. Keep playing until you get that, and you'll know what we're talking about.
The compression, the flushness, it's just. I don't know if there's many better feelings apart from that than being present. And Em came to me on the weekend and she said, all right, I need to start meditating, but it's like going to the gym. If I just start doing it on my own. I'll sort of faff about or whatever. So can you run me through a meditation boot camp? And I was like, sure. So 6 o'clock every morning. So we get up at 5:45, 6 o'clock, sitting and begin the meditation. And I just do a guided meditation, run us through it. And that's been wonderful. And then then we go for a walk with the dogs around the property with a herbal tea. Peppermint is the flavour of choice this week.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're cruising around and we're just having a mindful walk. We're not talking about what we have to do today or what we have to do tomorrow or anything. We're just noticing, oh, have you seen this plant? Or look at that tree, and just really sort of, oh, hear that bird. Just really sort of, it's a very meditative and grounding walk. And with the doggos, and then we'll come back, and then we'll go about our day. Next week, we're going to introduce more yoga and Pilates after it as well. So that's been wonderful, but I've added on top of that as well. So I'm not adding any. I'm not stimulating the mind or the nervous system for the first hour of the day. So do the meditation, do the walk, have the herbal tea. So I'm not drinking my usual cup of tea. I'm not going anywhere near my phone or my laptop or anything. And there's this plant on the property called lantana, and it's a pest. It's a weed. It's very invasive. And we had these tracks cleared, and so it's opened the property up. We can walk around, and I've noticed this lantana, and it's been a bit of a trigger to me every time I've said, "Oh, there's lantana. Oh, I'm going to get it. Oh, I'm going to," And there's been this real attachment, this real aversion to it. And so this morning, part of my meditative practice in the walk was to notice the lantana and just allow it to be. And going back to you said you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with everything and focusing on what you haven't done. That's me practicing that. And a mantra I've come up with is that I'm using, and I use mantras a lot when I'm trying to recondition myself, is I am at peace with how imperfect my ego is perceiving this to be. And looking at it through that frame, it's like, all right, it's just my ego is perceiving this to be imperfect. It's not perfect or imperfect, it just is. And it gets me out of that space so I can observe it objectively and then trust that a version of me this week or next week will attend to the lantana or will attend to whatever needs attending to. And it's just like this morning I just sat in the sunshine over there and ate my breakfast very mindfully and slowly, and it's such a pleasure. It's such a, but not pleasure in dopamine. It's such a just being here. There's so much to do. We have chippies starting back here. We've got renovations. We've got business growing. We've got this and that and all sorts of stuff going on. But it's all just there. None of it's it's all asking something of me. But I'm in this position where I get to allocate and choose what I give and when I give it, instead of just mindlessly pouring myself into it all. So
that's really beautiful. I mean, a couple of things to me there. It's like the importance of starting the day on your terms. Normally we start the day on somebody else's terms or technology's terms, and we start taking in way too much information too early and putting ourselves in a fight or flight, and the whole day spent in some degree to a fight or flight. So that's really important to the degree that we can do that. You're making me think about my neighbor when we were living on the beach in Frankston. And I remember one day, it wasn't long after I met him, and he had these garden beds and everything set up, and then there was this, I can't remember the name of it, but there was some type of, it must have been a weed or something. But I remember him out there, and I saw him out there about 3 days in a row, and he was trying to find and eradicate this particular thing. And I remember looking at him, and because I'm in no way, shape, or form any type of gardener or green thumb or whatever, I'm like, man, I've never known someone to hate a plant so much. Like, he was fucking on the lookout, and he was like, where is that one there? No, it's not that. Nearly is though, but but then I can then think about that in my own form, and that might be me taking the, and we all do this. It's like the totality of our life which is many different things and many different facets. And then maybe one thing is being misperceived as a problem by my ego, as you so eloquently put it. And so out of all the things, I kind of fixate on that. And that becomes the I've really narrowed in on it. It becomes such a bigger thing than it is in the totality of my life, but I've made it bigger because I've really just it's taking up my time and my frustration and my energy.
Well, it's taking up all of your vision and focus as well. It's right here in front of your face instead of pushing it back out there and being able to see everything. So we term that to be a cognitive distortion, and the distortion is disqualifying the positives. So when you hone in and focus on the imperfections or what you're not doing or what's not going well for you, and that's sort of sits right in front of your face. It is a critical thinking error. It is an unhelpful thinking style. So it's really important to have awareness when you fall into that trap and you've started to hone in and get a bit hyper focused on what you haven't done or how many weeds there are or whatever, and really start practicing this pulling back and allowing it all to be there, and start looking at what you have done this week, or look at all the beautiful plants that do exist instead of just the weeds, or look at the how many laughs you have had with your partner if you're sort of struggling in your relationship, or look at what you have achieved at work in terms of not just doing the work, but how am I helping others at work if work's an issue or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's a good practice to have, but you need to be aware that that is you're in a distorted state there. You're seeing things out of shape.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you spoke about, being present is kind of one of the best feelings. And I completely agree with you. But then part of me thinks like, when we're present to what? And I know that a lot of people might, decide they want to meditate to become more present. But when they meditate, all of their fears and insecurities are coming to the surface. So they're kind of present to their fears and insecurities. And that oftentimes isn't a great feeling for a lot of people. And a lot of what we've spoken about on this show, it's like, and I love how you literally, when you speak about it, you like lean back, because that's kind of what it's like. It's like I'm really in my stuff, and so I just need to lean back for a minute. And so it's very important that we can be present to our fears, our insecurities, our grief, our our regrets, all of this kind of stuff. Because if we remain present, don't judge it and don't push it away, all those things want to release or give us some sort of information to move on. And on the other side of that, which I've found time and time again, is then we get to be present for just what's here and now, beyond all of this baggage that we've accumulated.
Yeah, and it's a great question. What are you present with? You can be present with anything, pleasant or unpleasant, but it's about where are you positioned. And for me, I'm positioned in that space between stimulus and response. So the stimulus might be, hey, Nick, you've done this great, or congratulations, Nick, or thanks, Nick, or it may be look at everything I haven't done, or look at what's not going well, or look at how much there is to do. That's all sort of all the stimulus for me is quite equal. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's all because that would be black and white thinking. That's another distortion. So when we're talking about being present, it's really just sitting in that space in observation of everything. And as you said, without judgment, without pushing it away or wishing it wasn't there, because then there's an attachment there, and that's going to pull you straight out of that space, and you'll be in neurosis, and you'll be in your analytical mind and everything. So yeah, it's so peaceful in that space, and it's so beautiful to see things as they are. It's what the Buddha achieved in enlightenment, and we obviously move in and out of that space. I'm not in there permanently, of course, but there are certain practices and things that you can do to help yourself naturally move into there as a byproduct of these other things, like not stimulating your mind or body for the first hour of the morning. Just sort of meeting the day on your terms. That's a great expression that you said before. So Yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Well, we set the tone for the day over the minute we open our eyes. And, from that point on, life's going to life and things are going to happen. And someone will cut us off in traffic. Someone will say something at work. Kids will do something like, things happen. But, if we can start the day going, hey, this is my day. This is my terms. I'm living in here. All I'm experiencing is thoughts, emotions in the outside world. So it's up to me how I'm going to relate to that. And relating to it means we are leaning back and we're not just stuck in it reacting all day. And so if we I often would get clients to just draw that little diagram, next to their bed or on the mirror in the bathroom when they're brushing the teeth, where it's like you circle up the top, and you can think about that as your consciousness or the seat of self or spirit. And then you got the outside world, thoughts and emotions. And that's all. They're quite broad categories, but that's all that you're going to experience all day. And so your
Mm.
path is like, how am I relating to those things? Are they pissing me off, frustrating me? Am I reacting all day? Am I wanting them to all be different? Or am I relating to them from this place up here? Yeah. And so
But
I think we don't compound the issue when we can be more objective and look at things from that seat of self.
yeah, wonderful advice for clients. I would add to that, those three circles, also sensations as well, because they're very
Yeah. I would
stimulating.
put
They're
them
very triggering.
under emotions. Yeah.
Okay. Um, but it's interesting. The biggest source of stimulus is the self, because you're with yourself 24/7. So I've noticed in clients recently, many of them are reacting to the self or past versions of the self. And so they're not in that seat of self. They're not the eye behind the eye
Mm.
observing objectively, sitting in that space and just noticing, that's what yesterday's version of me did, and that's wonderful. And this is, they're caught up in the I must be perfect, and well, I didn't do this, and then they disqualify the positives. They didn't do this, and then they label themselves. Oh, geez, I'm an idiot for doing that. Oh God, I suck, and then they start beating themselves up and blaming, and all of a sudden they're spiraling down and down and down,
Yeah.
all the while going, oh, I'd like to be happy. Well, that math ain't mathing.
Yeah.
It's it just ain't. So, um, yeah,
Again,
that
the consciousness gets sucked in. It's like I can have these little moments where it's like, oh wow, okay, I can see myself, I can see my life and my thoughts, my emotions, and I can sit here and I can watch the way I react. But then if something causes a big reaction, that conscious kind of gets sucked in. And if we don't have I guess, the training and the skills and the time practicing it to pull ourselves out, then we'll ruminate and we can get stuck down there for weeks, maybe
mhm.
longer. Then all of a sudden we come out of it and we're like, oh yeah, I've been judging and beating myself up for the last 6 weeks. I'll try and get back in that seat of self now.
I had a client I've got in England, a beautiful man, and he's doing a monthly maintenance program. And the last three sessions, so the last 3 months, I've noticed he's presented more erratic, and what he's been discussing, there's been more of a theme of drama to it. There's been more of a, and this is happening, that's happening, and it's been really interesting to observe. And then yesterday he said that he had he had this erratic heart thing, and he felt sort of all dizzy and whatever, and he went to hospital and they put him on the ECG thing, and gave him some heart pills and medication, and then they said, "Oh, we'll restart your heart in a couple of weeks, to sort of reset the system in it." And he said the doctor hasn't rung him back yet to do that.
Right.
And I said, "Oh," and then he said, "Oh, it's happened before." A very off the cuff remark. He said, "It's happened before, but I sort of ignored it and blah blah blah," and kept going. And I was like, "When did it happen that when you ignored it?" He said, "Oh, about 3 months ago." I was like, "Oh, okay." And what happened is, I just got up in the middle of the night and, then felt really dizzy, fell over, hit my head on the coffee table, and then crawled onto the couch and went to sleep. And I was just like, God, I'm so glad you woke up.
Mm.
Um, and head injury and heart going wild. It reminded me of that billboard, the leading cause of death in men is stubbornness, and because we don't go and get help. Um,
That's because we're fine, mate.
and yeah, and he also had a panic attack about that stage as well. And he said, "So I've been exercising more, and the doctor said no caffeine or beer, but I've been drinking a few more beers and having a few more coffees and whatnot." So, and I said to him, it just dawned on me. I said, I could. I said to him, when did you stop your meditative practice? Because he was very diligent with it. And he was doing really well with it. And he said, "Oh, about 3 months ago." And now I'm not going to say that this is because of this or whatever. Go and see a doctor, follow your medical advice and all of that. But let's play around with it a little bit. So you stop. I said, knowing your nature, you burn pretty hot, right? You sort of and and then you weight lift and you put all this stress on the heart and the body, and then you drink caffeine and then you drink some beers all while running hot. And so you had this meditative practice that would not make you run so hot, and then you wouldn't need all these extra things on top of that, all these coping mechanisms. And I said, I could have said to you, just on the way that you were presenting, I would have said, "You've stopped meditating." I noticed it just in your, and he goes, "Really?" And his mind was blowing. He goes, "Oh, how could I not see?" And it was this hilarious conversation after that. But I was like, it's so interesting that the words medication and meditation have only one letter that's different. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm on heart pills and they're going to restart my heart and give me this heart procedure." And I was like, yeah, once again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you medical advice, but I wonder what would happen if you started meditating again, if you would be able to recalibrate your nervous system and the state of your heart and everything. He's like, "Oh my God." Oh.
It comes back to
Really,
yeah, so we just can't see the forest for the trees sometimes, can we?
no,
And
no.
and it takes that objective, view to look at it. And yeah, for him, it's like this word balance again. It's like, those yang. So I have my nature is very much yang dominant. And so, and when we're yang means more like working out as opposed to working in. It's like, let me do. Okay, I want to lift weights, blah, blah, blah. So I've got to, like, my path, and the same hopefully for this guy once he gets your message, is I have to focus on the yin, because the yang's
Mm.
just too easy. I'll naturally do all the yang. Like, there's no persuasion needed for yang activities.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting because, yeah, we cause more stress on the body, exactly like you're talking about with this guy, because then the body starts burning out. It gets tired. I need more caffeine. I need more things to help me get through, and which is all more stimulation. And so we're always trying to, and I've met many people and work with many people who it's the reverse. Their nature. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so
I'm very yin and M's very yang.
yeah,
So I need to go and exercise more. I need to go and be more hands on. I need to be more external because I'm very at peace internal. I'm very, meditate till the cows come home. But
yeah.
M's saying, "Oh, I'm struggling with meditation. I'm struggling to get into my yin. Can you help me as a yin person to get in there?"
And that's great. That's great that you can, help each other. You're literally like the yin and yang sign.
Yeah.
And so for those people listening, have a think about, what your nature is, what's your disposition, because then once you know that, and so it's not just, so for me, it's not just knowing that I have to do these practices where I'm slowing down. I need to, instead of going to the gym and lifting weights, maybe I just need to stretch for 45 minutes. I need to keep in touch with my meditation practice. It's also the food that we put into our body. There are more fiery foods and more cooling foods. And so what am I putting into my body? And so for me, I naturally I like eating the fiery foods
M does.
more.
M loves chili, and I don't.
And I
That's
know
so
Nico doesn't
interesting.
love chili after Vietnam.
It's not that I don't like or dislike. It's my body has a low tolerance for it, and helped me to lose 8 kilograms in 24 hours.
um,
Um,
any excuse not
yeah,
to get
that's
beaten
really
at golf by
interesting,
me.
Hess.
So yeah, so there's the hot and cold foods, and I recommend looking into that. A lot of Eastern philosophy around nutrition. We'll talk about that.
But we also have mental nutrition. So we also have hot and cold information coming in. I don't like drama and news and this and that and very noisy sort of stuff. I was literally just watching a documentary before we started, Ahimsa. It's about peace and cultivating peace within the self, and so yeah, nutrition's not just physical; it's mental as well. So what are you consuming mentally and physically, and maybe having that bit of a balanced diet?
That's right. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you have to, because you might say, well, but I love, working out and that kind of thing. And that's fine. Continue doing that, but just making sure, because we've always got this set of internal scales and we start to run into issues when they get, too out of whack. So we
Mm.
just need to bring them back in. Maybe it's like, well, instead of going and lifting weights 4 times a week, I'm going to do it 2 times a week. And the other 2 times I'm going to do some sort of yin activity where I'm working in. And then use yourself as an N of one experiment and go, I'm going to do that for 3 weeks. And I'm going to write down now how I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing. I'm going to do that. I'm going to eat some different foods. I'm going to do all this stuff. And in 3 weeks, I'm going to touch base here and I'm going to, see how I'm going. And then we have this awareness because like that client of yours, we get caught up and we lose track of it. Oh, I think, am I feeling better? I don't think so.
Oh,
Like, give me another coffee. Give me an energy drink.
his kids were sick and he moved house and his wife was, so life was really happening for this dude. And the first thing he dropped was his meditation practice.
Mm.
And so he's learned through 2 episodes of heart palpitations or irregular heartbeats and the panic attack that he can't drop his meditative practice. That's going to be a non-negotiable. But the hilarious thing was, once again, he had a very unmeditative meditation practice. And by that I mean he liked to meditate for an hour at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
and then the kids started getting sick, and he'd been up in the middle of the night, so he just wanted to sleep more. So if he couldn't meditate at 5 o'clock, he had this attachment, this desire to meditate, and very rigid. And so if he couldn't meditate for an hour, 5 till 6, may as well just not meditate. It wasn't even on his radar to shift his meditative practice to sitting in the car before he goes into the office or at
Yeah, like
lunchtime or
at
after
20
work
minutes,
or
even 15 minutes, it's
totally. So you got to be adaptive because you've got your normal, but then you've got these extraordinary periods where work ramps up or kids get sick or life's happening to some degree. You're moving house. And that's where we need to be like the suspension on a car. We need to respond appropriately to whatever it is that's happening. And he couldn't do it. He didn't have that in the forefront of his mind.
it's such a yang attitude to a yin behavior as well. It's like I remember doing that as well. I'm like, I'm doing it. How much is everyone else doing? They're doing 20 minutes. I'm doing an hour. I'm doing it every day. And then it inherently becomes unsustainable because life will get in the way.
Damn yang heads. So
Do you remember the what was it called? The headband, the Muse headband? What
yeah,
happened
it's
with them? Are
great.
they still going strong?
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
like
Why?
the game. No, just it came into my head about how we, gamifying, I suppose, these kind of
Mm.
practices, and I hadn't thought about that Muse headband in years, and I just hadn't heard much and seen much advertising around them, so I was interested.
Yeah.
It's a headband that you wear, and it measures the electrical activity in your brain. You might have heard us on the show before talk about the different brainwave states. So we have beta, and there's actually 3 levels of beta: low, medium, and high. And they're very much the focused on the outside world, cognitive thinking, busy, busy, busy. As we start to slow
Analytical
down,
mind.
analytical mind, we slow down, we come into a alpha brainwave where we can start to become more present, have a dual focus of internal and external. Theta, which is like,
Autopilot.
yep, theta, which is a state that is really, we can get to in meditation. That's really beautiful. It's like I'm not asleep, I'm very awake and alert, but my body is very much slowed down and kind of asleep to an extent. And then delta when we're asleep. And so that headband measured, and what would happen if you got down, if your brainwaves slowed down, a bird would come and land on you or something?
Yeah. So if your mind was quiet and not much activity, then the birds would start tweeting, and that was a sign that okay, your mind's quiet. And then if you, when your mind started to, you started to think a little bit more and get lost in some stream of thoughts, then it would start raining. And the more you were thinking and more activity was, the heavier the rain would get. But it was really interesting because this meditation training aid started creating stimulus that was going to stimulate the mind.
Yeah.
So clients would notice the birds and go, "Oh, you beauty!" I'm in that state, and then the birds would stop and the heavy rain would kick in because they've been so excited that there's birds there. So it would have the opposite effect, and it was so funny.
I remember doing it the day that you brought it in whenever we used it. And I'm like, oh, how many birds did you get? 10 minutes. And you're like, 9 or something. And then about halfway through, I've got like one bird. I remember going, come on, birds, for fuck's sake. Relax mind. Come on.
I did a, and it gives you, it's actually pretty good once you learn to use it without getting triggered by the birds or the rain. But and it keeps you history and it keeps you accountable. It sort of gives you a dopamine hit because you've done 5 days in a row. Here's an award and that sort of stuff. Um, I did one, and it tells you what percentage of the time you're calm and whatnot. So in 5 minutes, I got 44 birds, and it just looks like it was flatlined. It was so weird. And then clients would come in and they'd do one, and it was just like spike, 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 spike. It was like the Himalayas. It was very, very different. So yeah, it was good. Once again, it was a good bit of kit, but it is helpful. So if anyone's interested, happy to chat about it. Conditioning. It's been so interesting to once again observe. We've come up to the property. We've left the 4-bedroom suburbia and come to the 40 acres. We've lived in a caravan for 8 months now,
Mhm.
and that has unconditioned us from living in a house fully. So we've got sort of the old miner shack here. It's got a room up one end, that's my office, and there's a room in the middle, and there's a room at the other end. And we're building the domes and everything, but our plans have changed due to circumstances, bushfire ratings and whatnot. So we're going to live in the shack for a while. We're going to fit the shack out a bit, and so we bought a couch 18 months ago from the shop in Dramana. Beautiful couch. And we chucked it on the trailer. We lugged it all the way up here. So it was left in storage down there for a while until we moved. Brought up here. It's been left in storage in the shed here. And we pulled it out on the weekend and put it in the middle room in the shack, which is going to be our lounge room. And we both sat down and we're like, oh, what's it like to sit on a couch here? Because we don't have a couch.
Right.
And it was just such a weird experience to observe. Like, and then we're like, oh, this is the lounge room. And you look at it objectively, like it's an old 1800s miners cottage. It's pretty run down. It's just air basically with a couple of windows and a bit of timber here and there. But we are so excited to move into it, to move out of the caravan, and it's like such an upgrade and it's a luxury to move into this shitty old shack and sit on a couch. It's amazing. So it got me thinking about the cost of living is going up for a lot of people, and interest rates, and there's a lot of tightening up and a lot of stress and everything. And I just wondered why people are hanging on to that way of living. And we got this 40 acres for 400 grand or whatever. There's acreage everywhere for a lot less if you wanted it. I don't know why aren't people moving out of the cities more onto land, being more self-sufficient, living off-grid. We have no bills here. We've got our own herb garden, growing our own vegetables. Just why are
It's
people holding on to that way of life?
Oh, it's scary, not to. You know, it's we
Is
see.
it? Yeah.
Well, it's no, it's the ego misperceives it as scary
Yeah,
because
right.
we get stuck into these patterns and it's conditioning. We saw our parents do it and all that, and it's like this is I remember my dad saying like when I was a kid because I thought marriage was weird, like a little bit. I'm like, so what are we doing here? Like, yeah, I get like having a big party, that's pretty cool and everything, but like, what? Why are we getting married and signing a contract? And he goes, oh, because that's
Till
just what
death do us part.
because that's just what you do. I'm like, oh, okay. And I look back and I'm like, come on, Ryan, push a little bit harder than that for God's. And I just every time my dad said that's just what you do, I just went, okay, yeah. And it's not until I then became an adult and I'd had that life and was inherently not satisfied with it. Then I'm like, no, it's not just what we do. That's ridiculous. It's like you think about the workforce now and like baby boomers will always say, you just got to, pull your bootstraps up, pull your socks up and work really hard and work towards retirement. And that's a fucking fantasy now. These baby boomers bought houses for about 20 grand that are worth 2.5 million now. And you need about, $1 million loan to just get into the property market now, but wages haven't increased by anywhere near the same proportion. We just live in a very different world. And so there's cultural conditioning there. And most people, I think you made a good point. We have a certain lifestyle. So now I live in a 2-bedroom house and I have a Holden Commodore and blah, blah, blah. And so that gets normalized. And now it's like, well, okay, we've got to go into the 3-bedroom house. And now I'm going to need a better Commodore than the one that I've got. And so it's always feeling the need to step up because that's what we see. It's like keeping up with the Joneses. We see other people and it's like, oh, well, Thingo, got that car. Thingo just had this extension done on their house. I better do that as well or do something or I'll get left behind. Like, what the fuck does that mean? I'll get left behind. Where are you going to get left behind?
In your 2-bedroom house with a perfectly functionable car, you're getting left behind with mediocrity.
I know, yeah. And so what you're talking about is, and so much I see people teaching, today it's whether it's you hear Wim Hof and his cold exposure and breathing or people talking about doing extreme, hikes and running. It's like we live in a world where we're fairly comfortable based on the rest of human history. And so we need to kind of create our own conditions for growth. And part of growth is some sort of stress or challenge. And it's like you don't enjoy that couch if you're still living in Macrae and, got the couch every day. After a few years, you see a little mark on it and you're like, oh, we better get a fucking new couch. And it's like, it's the same couch, but you're having this experience of ecstasy sitting in it. It's like the warm fire. Like if you're sitting in front of a warm fire, is that a nice thing? Depends. If I've been out in the bitter cold, if I've been out working in the cold all day or I've been on some big hike or whatever in the snow, then that fire is ecstasy. But if I've just been inside all day anyway, it's like, fucking fire, who cares? I'll put the heating on.
It's just the temperature. I saw this this quote the other day or something. It was, I can't remember it verbatim, but it was along the lines of uselessness is a luxury only the rich can afford. And it was talking about, if you can't afford to pay someone to do something or to get someone, you've got to learn to figure it out. And this is really, we are out of our comfort zones up here. We don't have an endless supply of cash to keep throwing at everything. So I am having to learn things. I am having to get hands on and learn how to use this YouTube video. That all right? What are we doing here? And it's all it's challenging and it's fucking hard work and it's sometimes it's tiring, sometimes it's frustrating, but then it's so rewarding and it's so you look back and go, oh, I have a new skill. I'm of more use now. I can do this now, and
and I think that's inherently more rewarding because it's a life that you and Em have chosen, and so it's like we've chosen this, and we know that it has these amazing qualities. We know the challenges that it brings, but we chose that, and we're going to deal with those challenges. If I have stepped into a life that kind of feels like it's already been chosen for me by society or by conditioning, then we're much more in a place where we're going to get resentful. We're going to get stuck in a rut. We're like, fucking hell, there's got to be more than this. And people, I think, are so stuck in that state of conditioning that you're talking about that they don't realize. Like when me and Mel went and, we were in Thailand for over a year. We went back again last year, moved our business online, and people are like, oh, I wish I could do that. And it's like, fucking do it then. Like you can, like people always say, "I wish." I remember speaking to a guy over there, this British bloke in Koh Samui, and he was running a sports bar there. And I was chatting to him, and I'm like, "Oh, how did you, come out here?" And he goes, "Oh, when I was a teenager, I sort of worked my butt off doing this. I can't remember what the job was, but he builds up a little bit of money, and he goes, I'm just going to go live in another country, And he went there, and he's made a really cool life of it. And so his mates come and visit him." Once or twice a year, they'll have a holiday and come over. Because literally every time they all go, "Oh, I wish I could have done this." It's like, fucking do it. You can. Like you can, the option is there. We get to a certain point in life and we're like, it's like, well, that's everything. All of these options that I might like to do in my life are ruled out because what? Well, I'm grown up. I've got a family, or, I've got this job that gives me a steady paycheck. We've spoken about the golden handcuffs in the past. It's like I have this job and I make all this money, but I'm in golden handcuffs because I got the mortgage, this nice car that I'm trying to fucking show off to people with. It says me with a fucking Tesla. I understand the hypocrisy here. And so we're in these golden handcuffs where now I am stuck in a job that maybe I don't love, but I need to keep doing it because I'm married to that paycheck that pays for this cost of living, which keeps going up and up and up.
Yeah, it's fear, it's anxiety, it's insecurity. There's a lack of trust. It's limiting beliefs. It's all your own mind working diligently to keep you safe. But the hilarious thing is, it's all just perceived threats. It's all just the unknown. And guarantee, if you just turn up, if you just move to Thailand, you figure shit out as you go. We bought this place sight unseen. Like there's leap of faith number one, and then we came up here for a few weekends and stay for a week and mow the lawns, and it's cool. And I said to him, we've got to move up there. We've got to be on the property to really experience it. So threw the kids out and packed up the dogs in a trailer and the couch, and, and up we came. And it's just been figure it out as you go. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to be a master at every craft before you can do this. It's like just turn up. That's it. Just turn up, and then you know what you do. It starts bringing things out of you. Being out of that environment, out of that comfort zone, you start digging down and pulling these resources from within you, and you start finding, oh, I'm actually quite good at this. Oh, I'm a bit of a natural at that. Or wow, who would have known? I've been sitting in an office for 30 years, and all of a sudden, I'm a wonderful gardener. Oh, I'm so glad I exposed myself to this. So you can't. It's don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the capacity to endure a difficult or a challenging one. It's like get out of that. Stop having your ice baths because you need to create a source of stress or discomfort in life, and go and live outside of your comfort zones a little bit more.
Beautiful advice.
I'm having a metaphoric ice bath every day.
You are. Is that why your nipples are so hard all the time?
You know that, girlfriend.
My chiropractor, I went in there a month or two ago, and he's like, "Oh, just letting you know, I'm finishing up end of this week." And then he introduced me. He goes, "Oh, this is so and so. He'll be taking over the clinic." And I'm like, "Where are you going?" He goes, I'm taking the family. We're just going to have a year driving around Australia." I'm like, "Fuck, mate, that's awesome." And I'm like, where are you going to go? And he goes, "I don't know. We'll just head up the East Coast and just see what happens." And, and then I literally, I was getting something done out in reception, and I heard the next person he was explaining, and I heard the guy go, "Oh, I wish I could do that." And then it's like, and he's got 3 kids. And so it's like people go, "No, I can't pull the kids out of school." It's like, you fucking can. You have so many more options in life than you think you have, because your conditioning has led you to believe you're in some sort of cage that you can't get out of.
There's this 10-80-10 rule that we apply to many things in life, and that we teach clients to use. And this is an example where you can use that 10-80-10 rule. So 80% of the time, people will go, "Oh, I wish I could do that." That's probably the most common answer. 10% of people will be like you and go, "Good on you, mate. Get out there, get with your dream," and encourage the person. And 10% of people will go, "You're a fucking idiot. Don't do that. Oh, you're such an idiot. Like, you've got this, you've got a stable income. You're going to disrupt and they try and pull you down
Yeah.
because of their
The
insecurities and
crabs in
their
the bucket.
feelings. Yeah, it's just, and you look at those people and you're like, oh, I feel genuinely sad for those people.
Yeah, yeah. No, like when I hear people, like when I heard the chiropractor, like I remember I was smiling all the way home. I nearly was like, had tears coming in my eyes because I just love seeing people doing something different that's not a societal, or just having a go at something. Like you said, exposing yourself to different stimulus, because I don't know, what path my life might take, because I won't expose myself to new stimulus. And maybe it is like, well, I had this massive property and it turns out I wasn't much of a green thumb, but you had a fucking go. Or you
Well,
found
so
out you
to
really
them,
took to it.
the worst that can happen is we've moved to Queensland, lived here for a year, gave it a crack, and found out that it wasn't for us. But when I was at my worst of my worst, I found this philosophy, and I said I'd rather die standing than live life on my knees. And
Oh, yes.
that just broke me out of so many of those models that I was stuck in and that were causing harm and doing me a disservice. And I was like, and I say this to clients all the time: live bravely. Don't live. Don't be silly and put yourself in harm's way or danger or anything, but live courageously, be brave, and live in this sense of trust the seaworthiness of your own ship. You are the ultimate creator. You get to live a very closed, mediocre in terms of what you're doing life, and that's okay. I'm not going to judge anyone that's choosing that path. That's for them, and fine. But just know that there's so much more available to you.
There is. There is. And I think we'll know, because I know for me, it's like there was just something always crying out from inside. Just going, come on, there's more than this. There's more.
Turn my frame for it is I turn left instead of right. So the norm, society, everyone's going that way. We bought a house at the start of COVID when everyone's like, "Don't buy it. That's too." We turned left then instead of right. Everyone's like, "Right, settle in. Get a comfortable job." And I turned left instead of right. Let's move to Queensland. If you start practicing this turn left instead of right, you'll find yourself in the fucking wildest places with the wildest people, and it's such an adventure, and it's so you're just like, wow, and it's just this epic journey, and you find yourself playing golf on a 9-hole golf course in Bhutan, and this dude's just got a hole in one, and you're just like, how the Em and I at least once a week we turn around and go, how the fuck did we end up here? And I sent her, she sent that to me in a text. She goes, just randomly, how did we end up here? And I said something along the lines of, because we're just adventurers and we don't subscribe to the norm, and we get out and we give it a crack, and we're just amazing. And then she just sent all these love heart emojis. Oh my God, I love you for saying that. And but it was true. Like that's what we're doing. And that's we're yin and yang, so we're different on that level, but we are both explorers and adventurers.
And so I'm just trying to think of the people listening. So it's like, okay, let's say that, because everyone has different, I suppose, risk tolerances, and that's not a set thing. But it's like, maybe it doesn't mean selling up everything and going somewhere. But maybe for you, it's like, I want to start playing. I have this part of me that's like, I want to be more social and start, playing soccer. well, I would make a team and play on a Thursday night. But then you've put it off for like years because you're like, no, I can't do that because Thursday night, we've got this on with the family and, I'll get injured because I'm old. It's like
Yeah,
maybe
but
that's
for that
your opportunity to
person, they
turn
should
left
sell
as
everything.
opposed to right.
No, for that person, they should sell everything and move to Italy and start playing at a local soccer club in Italy. Or Brazil, go to Brazil and
Either one.
yeah, it is. And it's about noticing that limiting belief. Notice that anxiety trying to protect you and keep you in a comfort zone. A comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. Or a ship is safe in harbour, but that's not what ships are built for. We're not built or designed. The meaning of life isn't to live a 9 to 5 job and wear the golden handcuffs and then retire and die. We're here for so much more than that. We've been given this gift, like in the grand scheme of the universe, we're in this tiny, tiny little window, and we're gonna spend this miracle slaving away and making other people rich, or just burning ourselves out. It's nonsensical when you look at it sort of from that angle.
Oh, and at the end of it, when we spoke about, when we do get to the point of everything slowing down and we lose that identity that we've had, then we're kind of just left with a conglomeration of memories. And I've never heard one person go, oh, I'm just so glad that I didn't take all those risks. I'm so glad that I didn't do A, B, and C. Everyone's like, I'm fucking glad that I gave things a crack. The things that did work out, the things I didn't, at least I lived life and had a go at these various things.
And the things that you talk about, we spoke about in a podcast, the rounds of golf where the weather was hectic. I feel sorry for the fair weather golfers. Oh, no, it's raining. I'm not going to go out and play. Oh, it's too windy. I'm not going to play. They're waiting for the perfect conditions to go out. And, if I'm playing golf, I'm committed to it. I will go and play golf. And if it rains, it rains. If it's windy, it's windy. But they're the rounds, and you go, oh, I remember that. And I hit this one shot, and it was, and we got soaking wet and took me a week to dry out. But that's the things that we talk about because that's life. That's living, Barry.
We had a go.
We had a crack, mate.
Things.
But motivation is another one I just want to finish up on, and that's been a bit of a theme for the week as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk to clients about two types of motivation in terms of change. So it's pretty congruent with what we've just been talking about. There's this I have to sort of motivation, which is more productivity based and it feels like a chore. I have to go to work. I have to take the kids to this. I have to do that. And then there's the vitality based motivation, which is more I want to. So I'm more passionate about it. I want to go to work today. I want to take the kids because I love seeing them thrive and whatever. But then there's one that sits behind all that, and it's this I get to motivation. And this has come up with people this week, clients that are studying and going to uni, and they're, I'm just procrastinating, and I've got all these assignments. I'll leave them to the last minute, sort of thing. The usual affair. And I started talking, and I was like, "Isn't it interesting if we get in?" I was looking at you can dangle a carrot in front of yourself and you can reward yourself. If I do my assignment, then I'll do this. Or you can create an accountability partner and get some external discipline, to impose on yourself. Or you can use this. I want to do it because it's a stepping stone to getting a degree, and that's going to take me to a job, and that's going to give me money and the golden handcuffs.
Can't wait for them to get strapped on.
But and I'd never really thought about this before until this week. And I'd spoken about I gets to, but I hadn't really dived into it as I did it during the week. And I guess we take so much for granted. And this I get to, it's a gratitude based motivation. I have the means to go and study higher education or to improve my lot in life, or I have running water and a roof over my head and a place where I get to study. I have a laptop, I have a computer, and I can afford one. I have arms and legs that function and work in a way that allows me to type and walk around and do things. I don't live in a war-torn country or third world country. I'm not in survival mode fighting for food and water every day. And when you so it's a luxury having these assignments. It's a luxury, and they're complaining about having this luxury, and we weren't talking about it in a derogatory term, but we were being playful with it. I'm like, so essentially, you're having a cry about being so rich that you can go to university, and you, oh, poor you, you're getting these assignments. Oh no, and when you hold them up in contrast to all those other examples, it does, the arguments become redundant. It's sort of, it's just and it was ego shrinking for them. It was, oh God, oh, that's, yeah, I'm doing that, aren't I? I'm like, well, yeah, without any judgment, but you are doing it. But now that you've shone a light on it, and what it did was it created this mental shift for them. So it shifted them out of this, I'm procrastinating, I have to do it, I have to, and it really shifted that energy. And now there was more enthusiasm to go and complete the task, and more than enthusiasm, there was this sense of gratitude that I get to go and do these assignments. So it was just an
Yeah,
interesting one.
I would maybe call that yeah, motivation. They call it intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, where it's like intrinsic, where I'm motivated from within for some reason.
Yeah.
Extrinsic, I'm motivated by the outside, like, yeah, I've got to go to work, so I've got to get that paycheck, got to pay the bills. And then, yeah, inspiration. I think inspiration is when we can really link whatever we're doing to our overall values as a human being. And so maybe it is like, man, I desperately want to be a forensic scientist, and that's just, I can't wait. But then I'm doing these boring modules at uni, and I'm like, fuck, I hate these, I don't want to do them, but I've lost the link. I can't link what I'm doing right now to what my real values and aspirations as a human being are. As soon as I can make that link, then all of a sudden it becomes that it's a stepping stone on the way of my life and where I want it to go, and now I get to do it as opposed to I have to do it.
Well, we subconsciously prioritize things. So anything that we see as a chore, or you know it's going to require a lot of effort or whatever, that's where it drops down the priority list, and we will start to do everything but that. And then because there's deadlines usually and things, when the deadline starts moving closer and closer, that activates us into, shit, I gotta get done now, and then we rush through it.
Urgency. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But the
we're
funny
funny
thing is,
creatures.
I kind of find as well, for me, it's like those things that I'm not wanting to do. And then when you push them to the side, in your mind, they become like a much bigger thing than what you think. It's like, oh God, that's going to take me ages. I don't even want to get started on that. But then if you
Yeah.
actually sink your teeth into it and you like get it done in half an hour, you're like, oh, I could have done this weeks ago. It's really
But
easy.
you store it in the storage room with all this other stuff, and so it becomes that one little thing accrues and accumulates with all these other things, and it becomes a big thing. So all of a sudden, it becomes the elephant,
I'm
and you're like,
imagining a
oh,
hoarder.
it's
I'm
too
imagining a hoarder with the
much.
attic just full of shit. It's like,
Yeah.
please get rid of this stuff.
But it's also interesting because I always look at what I'm experiencing before I offer it to clients, and I've come up here, and it's the part of the coming up here was to start working on these client resources and doing some all the back end of the business sort of stuff, and start producing more content and everything. And it's been 8 months, and I haven't gotten around to doing much of it, but I've got to be mindful as well that I came up here with that as a goal, but there's been a fucking lot of other things to do as well. So I'm so grateful that I learned, and this is something we teach the clients as well, to not have an expectation that I have to go up there and do this. I should be doing this. There's no attachment in there. It's a goal, and it's still a goal, and I'm still working towards that goal, but it's just taking me longer than I initially thought because I hadn't lived on 40 acres before, and I haven't had to do everything that comes with this as well. So yeah, it's a balancing act there.
He's saying there's a bit of upkeep to 40 acres. It's not just jump out on the mower for 10 minutes, that kind of thing.
Well, upkeep to 40 acres. working on our relationship, because that really, just living together full time, 24/7, that revealed some things. So we attended to that, and now that's
The
wonderful.
other garden.
Yeah. Come on, man. We're
Your
building.
relationship garden, Nick. Come on, man.
Yeah, right. We're building. There's been a lot there to attend to. So, but I still feel that link. I still feel connected to, writing the book and getting that out there. And it's interesting because Shane's writing a book. Did you get a copy of it?
No.
Oh, I did.
Oh, look, he's smiling. I got one. Oh, you didn't get
No,
one.
I was
Sorry.
just trying to poke your ego there because it's so easy to poke, but
Not today.
not today. Right. Yeah. So Shane's written a book, and he's got the what's the copy before it goes to publishing. He's getting people to
The
proofread it.
draft or something.
Yeah, the draft. Yeah. And in the past, I would have resented the fact that he'd done it, and because I would have been,
Yeah.
I would have been disappointed within myself, so I wouldn't have had happiness within myself, so I wouldn't have been able to give that happiness to Shane. And but no, obviously, thankfully, doing the work, I reckon I didn't have that attachment that I should have written a book by now, so I didn't see it as competition, and so I was content within myself. And then when Shane asked me to proofread, I'm just so proud of him for knuckling down and writing this book. And I've written a part of it for the meditation part of it. I'm trying to support him as much as I can and happy to promote it and everything. So yeah, it was interesting coming from that version of me in the past. It was like, he's doing it, I haven't done it. Distortion, suffering.
Comparison, the thief of joy.
Yeah. Comparing is a cognitive distortion. So to sit in there going, oh, how wonderful! This dude's written a book, and it's an important book, and I hope a lot of people read it, and I can't wait to be a part of it and help him out with it. So.
Yeah.
Long story short.
Congratulations, Shano. Like, we'll have to get him on once it actually gets released.
Yeah, for the release, totally.
Yeah.
Yes, you get a mention in there. You get a little tickle.
Nick, that's just passed straight through me. Whether I do or
it
don't.
It has not. I can see the energy. He's going,
Nick, whatever you're saying is a distortion of your own ego, a misperception. Threw that one back here.
As soon as we hang up, there'll be this, yes! You'll be like Ace Ventura. Yes,
yeah. Melissa, order 10 copies of this book. Show me only the page that I mentioned on.
It was interesting when I started proofreading it. I noticed a part of me going, should we just skip to see if he mentions us yet? Should we just I was like, come on, man, really? But then I sat with that. Interestingly, I sat with that and realized it wasn't ego. It was just to see if what he'd written about Myndfit was going to be presented in the way that it actually is, and thankfully it was. So
sounds like ego to me.
Well, it wasn't.
All right, let's wrap it up. I'm busting for a piss. Go on quick. What is it?
I've got one more thing, but it's going to be the next episode.
Should we give a teaser?
Yeah, it's the do's and don'ts.
The do of what?
Of
life?
Staying mentally healthy.
Right, the do's and don'ts. All right, that's exciting.
So I've got a bit of a list. You can do some work if you. No,
that's a don't for me.
I've written a list of do's and don'ts. You're welcome to add to that list if it pops up in your head.
I'm going to marinate on it for a week. I'm going to come up with some absolute rippers. I can feel it.
Okay, all right. I look forward to seeing what you do or don't come up with.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. What should we call this episode? What was this about? I've forgotten already. Well, it's balance, like the yin and the yang. That I feel that was a
Yeah,
really important point. I think
yeah.
if listeners, if you can really take away that, I reiterate it. Just really have a look at your life and the way you've operated, and go,
And
what
being
will
brave.
and being brave. Yeah, true.
Yeah, but you can only really be brave when you're in balance. I think if you're
Yes,
too far one end or the other, it's too hard to trust and get out of your comfort zone and things. So
yeah,
being brave from balance or something.
being brave from balance. All right, bit of a mouthful, but we'll go with that. All right, peace out, everyone. We'll see you next week.